Okay, thank you. So we are going to start here. So for agenda for today and tomorrow, it's going to be the same presentation that I'll be continuing tomorrow. So these are the areas that I'll be focusing on. So to start with, since it is going to be related to data, we need to understand what is the meaning of data and what is the difference between data and information. And we will be slightly touching on the information security because that is the basis for data privacy. Data privacy is going to be next to that one. So we are going to talk about the information security, and then we will be switching over to data privacy. And then we are also going to see what is going to be the future in data privacy. What are the opportunities that are going to be there? How this particular this data privacy as such is going to have an effect on almost every industry that we have. And then we will be coming to the core of the discussion that we are going to have. We're going to see introduction of 4 different acts, 4 different methodologies, 4 different standards. The main one, what we are going to see here is GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, which is of Europe. And then we'll also be seeing CCPA, which is related to California Consumer Privacy Act, that again is going to talk about data privacy. Then we will be going through Canadian Consumer Privacy Protection Act and an introduction to that one. Again, that is also going to related to data privacy. And then we will be landing on our own India, where PDPB, that is a personal data protection bill that is introduced. And we have a way to get this one in India. So in fact, if you see that, that's also we are going to see that almost like 2/3 of the world, they have some form of other to have their data, to protect their data. So data privacy related standards are available in almost all countries that we have. You're going to see that one. So we will be going through as an introduction. It's not going to cover the entire thing because each of this, when you talk about GDPR or CCPA or PDPB or CCPA, each one is actually a five-day program, or at least 4-day program. Some of the things are going to be. So if you are not having assignment, or if you are not having case studies, then it is going to be a 4-day program. If that is the case, then we will not be covering the entire thing of these things, but we are going to have an introduction about that. What is that? Why should we know about that? And where it is going to be, where the scope is going to be, where it is going to be meaningful. So that is what we are going to see on each of them. And then we'll also be talking about what are the career opportunities that are there with respect to data privacy and various areas. So that's an idea, that's the agenda what we have for today. So for people who already know about information data, the basics that we have, data privacy and information, I request you people to be patient for some time, because this course is for everyone who has joined in this one. So some of them may not be having an idea about information security and data privacy, the difference between. So we will be going through that for some time, and then so that we will bring everyone in the same level, and then we will be moving on to the next one. So with that introduction, I'm just moving into the things. So we have multiple things. To start with, what we are going to see here is information security. When you talk about information security, as the name suggests, you are going to secure your information. Now the question is, why should we secure? And that is what we are going to see here. What is the need for it? Why should we go for security for information? And what sort of information that is there where it means to be secured? That's a thing that we are going to go for. To go into that one, the first thing what we have is data and information. As I said, data is raw data. So when you have raw data, which means sometimes you will not be in a position to get meaning out of that. Suppose you consider that, so today whoever has come, so you are going to create a table where how many people have come, or how many people when you have come, when you have left. So if it is going to give just the timings that you have come, entered into this meeting and then left this meeting, that information is not going to say anything. But the data, what we talk about that. So the data by itself is not going to have any meaning at all. Only when you are trying to get a context to that, then it is going to get some meaning. That is what we are trying to infer from that. So what you see in this slide is the basic differences between why do we say that something as a data and why do we say something as an information. So data is always the information that is collected. So you are going to collect the raw data, any reading, any measurement that you take, any monitoring activity that you do, or anything that you do where you have some measures are available, metrics collection is happening, there you are going to collect the basic data from that one. So data is the information that is collected. Then whereas when you want to define the information is the data process. So you are going to collect the data, and then you are going to analyze, or you are going to do a process on that, so that you will be getting an information. So information is nothing but a collective idea that we are going to infer from the data what we are going to get, because data are going to be just number or it is going to be just a text with that without setting the context, so that we will not be in a position to get a meaning out of that. So next one is always the data is going to be raw and unorganized, because we are going to collect from various places and then it may not be in the right way that it can be presented. So the first thing what we are going to do here is we will be organizing it, we will be structuring it, we will be organizing in a way that it is going to give a meaning for that one. So that is the thing when you go for even now most of the technologies that are there where we go for, especially in internet, what we do actually is we are trying to get the data and then we are organizing it so that you can convert that into information. Then collection of facts and facts within their context. So you are going to get some facts, the textual information, which has no meaning individually. But when you start setting the context to that, each of them is going to have some meaning out of that. So that's what we do as part of the information. And most of the time, data is going to give values for the qualitative and quantitative variables. But these things are going to be structured. When you say that you are timing in time and out time, it is going to only a time as the raw data. But when you are setting the context to whom this number is mapped to, then it means this person has come in this time and he has left in this time. So it gives some meaning to that one. Then only it will be called as information. So structuring and collating is going to give some meaning to the data what we are going to have. It can be qualitative or it can be quantitative. So it can be a number or it can be a textual one also. Most of the time, textual things are going to be very difficult for us to analyze unless you break it structurally. If you are in a position to break it, it is going to be very difficult for us to analyze. Whereas quantitative values are always easy for us to analyze, because you can get a meaning wherever you have heterogeneous set of values, then it is going to be very difficult for us to get a meaning out of that. So the first thing what we'll be doing is we will try to convert that into a homogeneous one. And then when you have homogeneous set of variables, or which can be a qualitative or quantitative one, then we will be in a position to structure them and then we'll get a meaning out of that. So data, most of the time it is going to be meaningless. Information is always going to be meaning. Suppose we have a column, suppose we have a spreadsheet and some values are given in a column. If just numbers are given, there is no meaning to it. But you are adding a title there, you are going to add a header there. It says age. The moment you are adding a header there, it gives a meaning. So that the moment you add a header there, then the data will become an information. That is the difference between these two. So data can be of any format, need not be just a number. It can be text, it can be graph, or it can be any statistical values that are going to be there. Information is normally presented as a sentence. So it is going to be more of a descriptive one, where you are going to use a language, you are going to use your thoughts built on the data that you have. So all these words, language, thoughts, and ideas are going to be built on the data that we have got it. And for data is not going to be sufficient for decision making, because it is not in an organized way. So when you want to make a decision making is always going to happen when you start analyzing the raw data that you have. So the moment we say we are analyzing, the first thing that what we are going to do that is we want to organize the data, and based on that we are going to set context, and then we will analyze that, and based on that we'll be taking decisions. So there are a lot of times when we start thinking on that, definitely on every activity that we do, we have a difference between data and information. But since we are used to that, sometimes we don't even think that whether we are working on data and information. The moment you start working on data, what you are going to get is an information. The moment you want some information, the first step what you are going to get is you are going to get a data. So that is how the data and information are there, and how they are different from each other. Now we are coming to the next level. So you have an information which is going to give some meaning. That is an inference that you get from the raw data. So first you have the raw data, then you have the second one, that is going to information, and the third one what you have is knowledge. So based on the information what you have, you are going to build your theory. The building your theory is going to be knowledge management. That is what is knowledge, what we talk about. So it is going to talk about collective information that you are going to have. So anything that is going to be related, you are going to pick all those information that are going to be related, and then we are going to collect a theory around that, and that is what we call as a knowledge. So if you want to talk about something, say it's Java, now for related to Java, we are going to get everything. So you are going to collect the data, and then you are going to set it as different information, and then you are going to relate it in a different way. So you make it as a collective one, then that is going to be a block on Java. So when you want to come out with a block, the first thing that you are going to do is you're going to get the data, then you are going to convert that into an information, then you are going to convert that into a knowledge. That means you are going to build an essay, an article, or something that is readable format. That's what we are going to get. So it is how the data is going to get evolved, or because that is the steps what we have here. So that is what is there. Whenever we talk about knowledge management, this is what is going to be essential, because every application that we have, every software application that we have, in fact, the way that we are working everywhere, it's going to be based on knowledge. And today's world, if you are not managing knowledge, nothing is going to be possible. Only thing is you keep updating your knowledge. It is not just updating. How are we going to manage the knowledge that you are going to gain? So that is what we have, knowledge management. When you go for knowledge management, what are the things that are going to be there? You are going to acquire the knowledge. Sometimes you will be creating a knowledge. Both are going to be there. Sometimes you are going to inherit from somebody else. So somebody would have done that one. You are going to read that, and then you are going to acquire that. Sometimes you are going to create it ourselves. So like you are developing a code, or you are going to write your own blog. So that is a new knowledge that is being created by us. Then sometimes we will be sharing and using the knowledge. That is because the very purpose of knowledge is to share and use. Then you will start learning it, and then for future use, we are going to protect it. So why we are talking about knowledge here? Only for the last step. We say that we are going to protect the knowledge, which means the information that you are going to collect is going to be protected. So when you say you are going to protect, the name itself says protect from what? Protect from whom? So that is what is the question that we are trying to answer now. So protection, knowledge protection or information protection, information security is the main thing that we are talking here. So that's what is the core area that we are going to see here. Knowledge management is the one that we already have. So this is how, why should we go for knowledge? So this is how the evaluation is going to happen. You have data. It's going to be from the data, you are going to infer information. Information you are going to collect, and then you are going to convert that as a knowledge. And that knowledge is going to identify opportunities for improvement. So this is how you are trying to use raw data and then convert into an opportunity where you are going to get benefits. So what are the activities that we do? There are going to be a lot of activities that we'll be doing to get this in things. For every information is going to have some meaning out of that. Every data that is going to be there, it will be having certain things along with that. But only when you start converting that in information and then knowledge, you will not be in a position to know what sort of opportunities you can tap that. So that is why when we go for all these things, one of the main things that we see is every data it is there, it is having some information, so we want to protect it. That is the reason why you are going for information. Okay, so we were talking about this. This is why we want, first of all, why should we go for information? The reason for that, we want to tap the opportunities. And when we have an information in the world of competitive world that we are in now, so information is going to be a critical and vital one. So we need to protect that so that it is not going to be misused, or it should not be used against us. That is where we have this information security and the data privacy that we have. That's what we are going to step in now. So we talked about the data and the information. What is the difference between these two? Now we are coming to the next step. What do you mean by information management system? Now, information management system is a basis for data privacy. When you say the data has to be protected, so first of all, we need to know, like, how are we going to manage our data? So unless we have a system, now whenever we talk about a system, there are three things that are going to be part of it. So you have a system is going to be people, process, and infrastructure. So any system, any type of management system that we want, any type, it can be anything. It can be a knowledge management, or it can be a quality management, or it can be information management. Any management system that you are going to have, it is going to have three things: people, process, and the infrastructure. Now, the combination of that is going to give as a tool, and based on that, you are going to maintain what you want to maintain. So when we say that we are going to manage the information what we have, the first thing that we are going to have is we're going to have a system. Now, why do we need a system? So that is what is given here. So what we have here is, whenever as we have seen in the previous slide, the information is sometimes it is created and sometimes it is received. We are going to get it from somebody else. So whenever it is going to be created or received, you are going to either process it or you are going to store it. So either way, right? You are going to process it or you are going to store it. So in this case, what will happen? We will be sometimes storing it and then we will be processing it later. So process and store will happen continuously because any data that is going to be there, need is going to be different because the information, the way that you are going to get the knowledge, that the way that you are going to build the knowledge based on the data that you have is going to have different dimensions. When you have the data, information is going to be having different dimensions. So the method that you are going to use the analysis is going to bring information every time in a different way. So that is something like, suppose a simple thing, you take this one, this is an example. Suppose you maintain a data bank, just two things, name, date of birth. So this is what the raw data that you have. Now we look at this, only the date of birth, you are not going to get any meaning out of that. Okay, he is born on that day. What big thing is that? But now you are going to do an analysis. You are setting a method that we want to find all people who are born between 40 and 50. So that is the rule that you are going to get, and you are going to get some information which is going to be unique. Then you are going to change the analysis rule, and then you are going to get a different set of information. So the information what you are going to get based on the analysis is keep changing, depending on what sort of methodology that you use, what sort of filters that you are going to use that one. That is what is process. So that's going to be essential because that is what we are going to do as part of all these four systems that we have. So you are going to have this data that is going to be available, raw data is going to be available. You are going to process it, and sometimes you will also be transmitting it. So beyond that, sometimes the data what you are going to store may get destroyed, corrupted, or lost. So that can happen when you are saving it, when you are transmitting it, or even when you are collecting it. So now when you want to have an information management system, we want to see what are the processes that are required to do this one. So we are going to see that how are we going to create, how are we going to receive. For each of the activities that is there in this one, we will see that how are we going to create that one, what processes that are required, what tools that we want, what methodologies that are there, how are we going to store that, in what format. That is what we are going to do that one, right? So okay. Yes. So any process that you have, so when you talk about information process, the first thing is we will be having at least these basic processes that are going to be there. So you are going to have certain processes for creating, receiving, storing, processing, transmitting, etc. Apart from that, any system that is going to be there are always going to be risks, because in this world, nothing is going to go. Any execution of that is not going to be always as per the plan. There are going to be thousands of environmental factors that will make that to fail. That is what we call as a risk. Risks are always going to be there in every process that you are going to do, and this risk will be making all the problems. So where they are going to create, for what sort of problem that we are going to have if we want to have an information management system. So one of the things is you may be having a database which is getting destroyed. You have a say hard copy document, it is in fire, it is burned. So it is totally destroyed, or it is corrupted. You have an Excel sheet which you have prepared spreadsheet, and somehow it got corrupted, and you are not in a position to get the values from that one, or sometimes it is lost. So there are different ways by which we will be losing the data. So losing the data either fully or partially is going to be one of the risks that we have. Apart from this, the other risk, that is what we are going to see here. When we talk about data privacy, the biggest risk that we have is how our information is going to be stolen and how it is going to be used by others. That is what we are going to see that one. How I am going to secure that my information is only for me. So that is what we are going to see there. So when we talk about information management system, you are going to have set of processes where it will be doing a lot of activities, and you will also be facing certain risks. And for each of the risks, you will be having some mitigation activities. Now, what sort of, now, whenever we talk about information management system, normally we will think that it is going to be an application. It is going to be a software application. It need not be. You can have just hard copies, and then still you can have information management. So consider a case that, say, 40 years back, how the libraries were there. Only library was the only form that was there. And whenever you want some information, you used to go to the library and you are going to see the catalog and then get the book and then you do. That is also an information management system. Even now, the libraries that are there, they are having a catalog, and through the catalog, you should be in a position to get the information from that one. So any form that is going to be there, information management system, which is going to cater these requirements. That is, it has to protect the information, and whenever we want it, we should be in a position to retrieve the information from that one. by doing these processes. That is what is called information management system. Okay, now that's the first thing. Now the second thing is, when you have an information system, to whom it is going to be useful. In an organization, you say that you have an information system because any application that we have, any software application that we have, the primary purpose of that is only for saving the information. And why do you want to save the information? Only to retrieve it in future, because in future we want some information and we want to retrieve it. To make the retrieval easier, to make the retrieval definite, we have an information system. So when you go for that, and when you see that there are always going to be need, what sort of needs that are going to be there? So there are going to be requirement, needs and expectations on the information is going to be at different levels. In the same organization, you may be having the same set of information, but the depending on the level here. So if you look at this one, the working force, they will be using the information only for automating and enabling their operations, because their focus is only on how to automate, how to enable, how to track the data when they are doing the quality control activities. How are we going to record that? Only that level they will be using the information system. Whereas the middle management, the managers, they will be using the information for tracking and managing. So they see that whether we are meeting the quality level or not, whether the people have reached the productivity or not, schedule is met or not. So most of the time when the middle management is focusing on the information, they will be focusing on what are their targets to them. In the third level, you have senior management, where they will be taking decisions on that. So making decisions is one of the things. When we talk about making decisions, the first thing that we will be doing is all decisions that we take is all going to be based on personal experience. When I'm going to take a decision, I always will be using my experience, what I had in the previous time, how I have reacted to that, how I responded to that, how I failed, how I succeeded. So based on that, I'm going to make a decision. So if that is the case, when we are going to collect that information, the failures and the success that we had as part of our organization in all the activities, that information, if you are going to use for your decision making, that is what is the best thing that you can do. And that is what is done by the senior management. So senior management is going to use the information system for making decisions. And the top level executive, they are going to use this information for strategies, so setting the strategies. They know that where we are lacking or where we are doing better. Based on that, they will be setting the strategies. So the idea here is, you have the same information system, which is going to be a structured way of storing that information, which is going to be coming from a data set. And then this information is going to be used by various levels of our organization for various purposes. That is why the entire world is spending crores of money on this one, because they are spending millions and millions on setting the applications, computer applications. The only reason is they want that information should be available as and when they require, so that they can do their activities on a daily basis. That is where the importance of information system is going to be visible. Now we are coming to the next step here when we talk about information. So when we say that we are going to, when we always say that we are going to protect the information, we are going to save the information. Now, how are we going to save? So when you save, there is always going to be an asset. Now this information asset, we call that as information asset. Now this information asset can be a physical one, or it can be a virtual one, the logical one. So if it is, suppose you are writing on a notebook, like we normally, some of us, we have a habit of writing our diaries, right? Every day we write something on our diary, and the diary itself is going to be a physical form of our information asset. So after 30 years, you are going to see that one, what you have written 30 years back. So that is the information asset what we want. So where you are going to store your information, that is the body of knowledge, right? So that is what going to contain all the information that you have created on a particular created, or you would have got it from somewhere else. You are going to note it down. Suppose you, most of the people we have at our college days, we always have this habit of writing wordings, right? When you are getting some quotations and everything, we'll keep it writing somewhere. So at one point of time, you will be having a notebook where you will be having a lot of quotations. So that is what is the information asset what we talk about. So it can be physical or virtual. Why do we say it is virtual? Because when you have a software application, then anything that is going to be written on software is going to be considered as a virtual one. So both formats are available. So where are we going to, what are the examples? You can see that one, employee database, products and services that we provide, production, sales detail, any of these things that are there is going to have some meaning, which can be used in future. Ultimately, the benefit of having information is only for the future. In future, we want to refer. That is why we want to save them. Where we are going to save, that is what is going to be called asset. Now, why should we talk about asset here? Because when we are going for information security, we need to secure our information assets also. Whether it is going to be a physical or virtual, we will be focusing on saving our information assets also. That is why we are just touching on this area. Okay, now we are coming to information security. This is the first step for data privacy, because data privacy comes later. First thing is you need to have your information secured. So when you say that information is secured, what is the meaning of that? So there are three fundamental things that are always there. There are three characteristics that are related to information security. It's called CAA. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is a property which says when an information is there, it should be available or it should be disclosed or it should be visible only for those who have authority to see that one. So it can be a set of people or it can be one person, or how you are going to define that rule, that is entirely different one. But the people who have access, who have authority to view, they should be only in a position to see that information. That is the confidentiality what we want to have as part of our information that we have. The second part is the integrity, which means the data integrity, which means you may be having multiple systems as part of our organization. Wherever it is, when it is going to be there, the same entity or the same data point that you are talking about, the data point, the value should be same wherever you are, from wherever you are going to access it. So if say that in my data birth, so if I am going to look it through my employee management system, or if I am going to look it through my employee file, or if it is in Provident Fund file, wherever I'm going to see, it should be showing the same thing. That is what is the data integrity. That is also going to be part of the information security, because when we say that security, we don't mean only the security there. We mean that data should not get corrupted, or the data that we are going to have should be always the right data. That is what is the data integrity. When you have a spreadsheet, now you have some 1,000 rows in that one, and two, 3 rows are corrupted. That means that is the data integrity issue. So wherever you talk about this, whenever we talk about data integrity, either showing incorrect data or it is going to show different data at different places. That is the data integrity what we talk about. Then the third aspect is availability. As long as I have access, which means I have authority to see that information, I should be having access to that. That data should be available to me from anywhere, whenever I want. That is what is availability. So whenever we talk about this information security, we will ensure that we will be having this confidentiality, integrity, and availability preserved as part of this. That's why whenever we talk about information security, one of the main things that we'll be talking about is, especially as a service, if we provide server maintenance, where we will be focusing on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Because when you are maintaining a server for any of our customer, then the information that is going to be as part of this server, any confidential information should be kept safe, and the data integrity should be maintained, and we need to ensure that this is going to be available at any point, at any person. So these are the things that we are going to give as a service to the users. So that's the first thing we are going to have. Apart from that, there are going to be other properties also which are not that important, but still we need to focus on that one. So we are going to talk about authenticity, accountability, who is going to own that one, then ability to prove the occurrence, non-repudiation, so claiming event or action and originating entities, reliability. Whenever say reliability is how consistent the activities are, like transaction failure that happens if you are working on some web applications. So it is not going to fetch the same data again and again, which means there is a problem in the system is not reliable, which means it is not reacting, it is not responding to the way that we are looking for. So there are going to be different properties that are related to information. And when we talk about information security, it is not only confidentiality, it is going to be integrity and availability also. This is what we are going to see as part of our data privacy also, because data privacy is going to be a subset of information security. That's the next step what we are going to see. So we should not always go by the word security, which means confidentiality. Only these, not that way. When we say that it is an incident that is happening as part of information security, incident can be related to confidential, missing the confidentiality, missing the integrity, missing the availability. That's how we will be doing that. Now, that's why these three are going to be always important. CAA. That is why when actually, if you are familiar to ISO 27001, which is a standard that is used for information security, ISMS, Information Security Management System, one of the main thing that we'll be doing is for every information asset, we will be seeing what is the value. We will try to evaluate the value. We are trying to get the value for these three things, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability for every data or information asset that you have, because we want to see that what is the importance or how you are going to prioritize your information assets, because information is going to be there. Suppose you have a server, or if you have Excel sheet for our discussion, say you have 10 Excel sheets, 10 spreadsheets. Now all spreadsheets are not going to have same information in that one. Some of the thing where probably you will be having your financial information in that one, and some you may be having some reminders, something you may be just having some books names or something. So each one is going to have a different nature, and when you are looking at that one, which is going to be important, how are we going to find that one? Only on the basis of CAA. So CAA triads are actually used to see out of multiple information assets that we have, out of this, which are the one which are prioritized, where we'll have to give priority. So priority is always going to be given, because when you go for information security, prioritized assets are going to have more focus, because they are the one which has information that is more confidential, and they are the one which needs more integrity has to be maintained. They are the one which needs to be available all the time. So consider this. I'm taking some more time on this one discussing, because this is what is going to be the basis for our privacy also. Because when we talk about confidentiality, it is going to say that as long as I have authority to see that one, then only I should be in a position to see that. That is the first confidentiality what we talk about. Suppose you have a web application that is hosted. Now that web application, I should be in a position to access into that by having a user ID, which means confidentiality is built there. So only those people who are given a user ID and who have a valid password, they should be positioned to view the content of it. Of course, you can have other levels of filtering also there. The next thing is, whenever I say this data is going to be there, you can see at any point of time, data integrity, because the data that you are going to have, you need to ensure that no way it should get corrupted. So what are the precautions that you are going to make? So data integrity has to be maintained as long as you say that this data is going to be available, because most of the time, availability is also one thing that is going to be related to how we are going to maintain your information systems. That's why we have something called server availability, 99%. Even Google says Gmail servers, they are available for 99.9999. So that is availability what we talk about, which means it is not going to fail 24/7. It is going to be available. Very rare cases you may be missing the access to that one. So availability is going to talk where you can access that. Integrity is going to tell you how long it is going to give the data without corruption. So these three are going to be important. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability are going to be important for any information management system. And when we talk about data privacy is going to be part of that. We are going to see that one, what is the difference later. But again, even there, we are going to talk about this availability, confidentiality, and integrity again. CAA triad is always going to be used when you want to maintain information security. Now, this point should be very clear that information security is a superset, and data privacy is going to be part of it. Because when you talk about data privacy, it ensures that the data is going to be available only on the basis of persons. When he accept that, then only we are going to make it available to others. So that is going to be part of this. That's what we are going to see that one. That is why we are spending some time on getting the basics of information security here. So CAA triad is the one where it has to be built as part of that. In fact, CAA is the one that we'll be using if you want to prioritize the information assets that we have. Out of the information asset, which is going to be prioritized, which has the more value, that's all going to be purely on the basis of values that you are going to quantify for these three characteristics. Now, Now coming back to information security management system, where it is going to be applicable. So as I said, it's going to have some process which is going to be for collecting the information, processing them, storing them, transmitting them. These are the 4 type of activities that are going to be done. These are the processes. If you look at that, any application that you think of, any software application that you can think of, they do only these 4. Either they are collecting in terms of GUIs, or when you are going to port something, input, export activities. So all these things are going to be used as part of that to collect the information from the user in different ways. Then you'll be having some parts, some features of the application which will be processing it, which means you are going to analyze that, and then multiple data points are going to be used, and based on multiple data points you are going to get a specific thing. That is, you are trying to infer information used on multiple data points. That's what is a process. You are going to apply multiple things, and then you are going to make a meaning out of that. And sometimes this out of the process you are going to get some derived value. That derived value is also going to be stored. Simple thing, you have, like anybody is going to have payroll, is going to have basic pay, DA, traveling allowance, and other thing. All the allowances are going to be there. So that is what is going to be the data. Now this data is going to be analyzed every month, and then when the payroll processing is going to happen, depending on how many days he has attended, you are going to do that process, and then what you are going to get is what is the net pay and what is the deduction that you are going to get. So that means you are going to bring 2 more heads, collect that you are creating 2 more heads based on the data that you already have. So data points are going to be used, and you are going to apply a different rule on that, process on that, and then you are going to get a new data point. And that data point is sometimes it can be use and throw, sometimes you will be storing that also for future. So that is what you are going to store here, and then transmitting. So when you want to give it, when you want to share it to some other person, some other organization, you are going to transmit it. So when we talk about information security management system, we need to take care of security when you are collecting, when you are processing, when you are storing, and when you are transmitting the information. That is what we talk about. And then while we are doing that, in the process, there are going to be multiple risks. As you already said, any process that you have, any project management, you will be having a plan. Now, when you are going to execute that, we always assume that when you are executing that, it is going to be in sync with the plan. But actually what happens, it is that's a very ideal condition. So it may not happen. What we normally will be having is, when we do this sort of things, the first thing what we are going to do, that is we assume that execution is going to be in sync with the plan. But there are going to be multiple risks as part of the organization or environment. So these risks will not let that to happen. And that is why you have something called monitoring. So the monitoring activities are actually going to keep watching the risks that are going to come. So these risks are going to be identified, and you are going to identify whether the risks are occurring or not. So when the risk is going to occur, these monitoring tools are going to tell us that risk has occurred or about to occur. Then you will be having control measures. So these control measures are going to be applied so that the execution is going to be set in a way so that it will come back to the original one, and it will start moving as per the plan. So monitoring and control is a dual activity that you will always be doing. And monitoring is watching how the execution is going on and any deviations that are going to come with respect to the plan, it is going to alert us. And based on the alert, controls are going to be applied. So that is what is project management that we have. For this, information is required. And that is what we talk about here, the risk. Any risk that is going to be there in either of these activities that we do, we need to have, first of all, we need to identify the risk. Unless we know there is a risk, that's going to be, we'll not be in a position to go for some mitigation for that one. So you need to identify the risk, then you need to evaluate them. You need to monitor them on a periodic basis. Then only you will know whether it is that risk is occurring or the risk is actually subduing or not. So based on that, you are going to take a decision, and then you are going to mitigate the risk. So while mitigating the risk, your execution is going to happen as per the thing, so that the risk is going to be avoided. Now, what is the risk here? When we talk about information security, losing the information is going to be the risk. So risk is actually related to CAA. Risk is if there is a risk that this information is going to be leaked, that is related to confidentiality. If there is a risk that my data is going to get corrupted, that is a data integrity issue. If there is a risk that for a particular moment, my data is not going to be available for any of the right user, that is availability issue. And that is the risk what we are talking about. So that is why we talk about CAA here. Whenever we talk about a risk is something which is not going to let this happen, any of these or combination of that. And that how are we going to identify? We will be having monitoring and control. So monitoring activities are going to do that one, and that monitoring and control measures should also be part of our information security management system. So it is just not having a processes to collect, process, store, and transmit the information. We will also be ensuring that we are going to identify the risk, and based on the risk, what sort of control measures that you want to bring in. Now, when you say that risks are going to be identified, what is that you are going to do? The first one is the threats are going to be there everywhere. Now, there are going to be multiple threats. In fact, one of the things that we have is always risk is there. The moment you are born, you are having the risk of dying. We still live, right? Risk is there, but the level is very low, so we live. We don't consider that as a risk, but risk is there. Only the impact is going to be very negligible. So risks are always going to be there, and when the system is going to be vulnerable, these risks or the threats are they are going to have an higher level of impact, and the damage is going to be created on our system. So what we have here is you have a system where there are going to be certain vulnerabilities in your system, and always there are going to be set of threats that are going to be there in the environment. These threats will be having certain impact. That impact is going to utilize the vulnerabilities in our system and then damage our system. So that is what is virus. Virus is a threat. So it is always looking for vulnerabilities in our network. Wherever it is vulnerable, then this virus is going to make use of that. The impact of that is going to be felt, and it is going to damage our directly what you say is information asset. So the one that is going to be affected is the information asset. The moment you are going to have some damage on the information asset, you are going to lose all of this. Either the values that are going to be the information that is going to be stored is going to be stolen, which is a confidentiality issue, or it is going to corrupt the integrity. So that means you lost the entire information. Availability is lost. When you are blocking that, then availability is going to be lost. So any risk that is going to be there, these vulnerabilities are going to make the risk to occur or make the impact of the risk more, so that we will be having all the problems. So when we talk about information security management system, we talk about the processes that are related to these four, which are the basic things, basic activities that we do with the information. And we will also be monitoring the risks that are going to be there, and we will also be ensuring that always we'll be looking for vulnerabilities in our system on a periodical basis and see that how we can block them, how we can minimize the vulnerabilities so that the impact is going to be less. So that is what we need, information security management system. So that is what we talk about controls here. So we will be having multiple controls. This is what is that. That's why we go for implementing 27001. So when we talk about any of these things that we have already seen as part of the agenda, GDPR or anything that you want to have, GDPR is going to be sitting on 27001. That means you are going to talk about data privacy management system. Data privacy management system is going to be sitting on data security, which means information security management system. So the primary thing what you are looking here is you need to have an information security management system, and then specifically you are going to have something more, which is data privacy system. That's why we are going to all these things. So when you want to have your information security is control, which means you want to identify the risks that are there and monitor them, identify them, and then have control of everything. What sort of control measures that you can do? And one of the methodologies that we have, which is very popular, is ISMS, which is 27000 ISO 27001. In that, you have multiple control measures that are given. In fact, there are 114 controls that are there. So they are actually categorized into various things. Like some of the things are going to be organizational controls, some are going to be people control, some are going to be physical controls, some are going to be technological controls. Now, depending on what is the nature of that particular risk, we will be dealing with either of these things. When we talk about technological controls, something like a virus scanner or something like a firewall, these things are going to be technological, logical things. So most of the time, it is going to be the software that we'll be using. When you talk about physical controls, if it is a server room, you are going to get it locked. Only the authorized person can get inside. Whereas an employee, when you want to enter into organization, you can enter only when you have the swiping card. So only when you have so security is not going to allow you if you are not swiping that one. So these things are going to be part of the measures that we are going to use. So typically when we talk about this, physical controls are going to be applied on either things that physically it will not allow the people to go inside the premises of the organization where the information is going to be there, or it is also not allowing the people to enter into places where our information assets are going to be there. That is how we are going to have physical controls. Then people controls. People control is one thing where we are going to either train the people on how to use this and tell the people how to behave so that we are not going to miss any of the things. So we are going to control the people the way that they are going to be. And then something like there are a lot of ways of doing this people control. One of the main thing is whenever these incidents that are happening, these incidents are going to happen on either case that some of the things are going to be initiated by resources, human resources. It's not deliberate every time. It can be unwanted, unknowingly also they can do that one. But they are the sources for this one. They will be a source for that, and then they will be doing that. So in this case, what you see here is when we talk about physical control, you are going to apply a control on resources. So you are going to restrict the users. You are not going to give more access to them. So by having some controls on people, you want to restrict the CAA. Again, CAA is the basic, what you want to give. You are going to set some confidentiality, you are going to set some availability. All these things are going to be controls. And organizational controls at the organization level, how are we going to ensure? Like one of the things that we have is vulnerability. We see that in the previous slide. What are the vulnerabilities that we have in our system? Now, if it is going to be vulnerabilities in our network, who is going to be responsible for that? So that is one of the reason why we have earlier also we have seen in one of the slides, every information asset will be having a owner. Every process will be having a owner, and it is a responsibility of the owner to ensure that they always will be looking out for vulnerabilities in their areas. So these vulnerabilities are to be identified, and you will be having a control so that it is vulnerability level is going to be minimized. So when we are going to minimize this, then it is going to be an activity that is done at the organizational level. So that is what we are talking about here. When you want to bring the controls, the control measures that we are talking about with respect to security, this is going to be applicable for privacy, data privacy also. Because data privacy, as I said again and again saying, data privacy is going to be only part of information security because it is only a subset of that. All these things are, that is why this entire data privacy system is going to be built on ISMS. You need to have information security system. Unless you have this secured, you will not be in a position to achieve data privacy. Data privacy is the second step. First step is you need to have information security control. And when you want to have, these are the categories of measures that you are going to bring in. So organizational wise, as I said, there are 114 controls as of now we have from 27,001. So how are we going to do that one? So there are multiple things like how we are entering. When you are using the password, what are the steps that we'll have to do? So most of the things that we do, there are certain cases where administrative controls are there, which is what we say people control or organizational control. When you say that every 3 months once your password has to be reset. Now, you can have you ever thought of that why it should be done? Why it is asking us to reset the password or it is forcing us to go for setting the password again and again? The reason for that is even if we we left the organization and our passwords are still open, automatically it is going to be inactivated, deactivated. So that is what we are looking for. So if you want it, you will have to change that. Otherwise, automatically it is going to go. So there are certain things by default it will get deactivated, which means the activities that we can do CAA related to CA again, there are going to be the value of that or the access rights or privileges are going to be removed on a periodical basis by default. When you want, you are going to extend it. That is what is the organizational and people control, what we talk about. Like that, there are going to be multiple controls that are there. How are we going to maintain your network? How do you ensure that vulnerabilities are going to be identified? That's why we have something called vulnerability tests. There are a lot of tools that are available. These tools these are software tools that are available. You are going to run it on your your network. When you are running it on the network, it is going to give list of vulnerabilities in your system. Now, what is a vulnerability as far as network is concerned? It may be a password, which user ID, which is very weak, password, which is very weak, or some of the ports are open. So these are the things that are going to identify, because these are all patterns, known patterns are going to be there. These patterns are going to be identified, and it is going to prompt us, these are the problem, which might be an area where it is going to be vulnerable. Once it identifies, it is going to only identify. Now, once it is identifying that one, then we are going to have a plan to resolve it. So once you resolve it, then the vulnerability level is going to be down, so that the damage that is going to be caused by the impact of these risks are going to be minimized. So always we see that risk, whenever we talk, we are going to see some of the slides on risk management also. Risk management is going to be always there. When we talk about information security, risk management is going to be 24 hours job. We keep looking for risks. And whenever these risks are going to be there, we see that how are we going to monitor it first on a periodical basis, and then what sort of steps that we are going to do so that these risks are going to be minimized. We are going to see that one. So the controls are the mitigation activity that we talk about. So what we are talking here is main point, what we need to have is any information system or information, what we talk about, any information asset that we have will always be having CAA. That's going to be, that is how we are going to look into that one. And any information security system is going to have processes that will be helping people to do this one, these four activities. And also it is going to identify all the risks that are going to be associated with either of these things. And then how are we going to mitigate them? And you will also, as a preventive measure, we will also be identifying the vulnerabilities on a periodical basis. And then we will go for resolving them so that you can minimize the damage that is going to be created by the impact of the risks that are going to happen. So for that, you have multiple types of controls. They are categorized into various types depending on the nature of it. Okay. When we talk about organizational people control, now we see that what is the meaning of that. Organizational control, you are setting a policy. So as part of our organization, we have an information security policy, or we are having GDPR implemented. So when you say that policy, what we call policy is the wish of the organization, top management. When you say a policy, it is going to be the qualitative statement, which is going to talk about why the top management is implementing ISMS or implementing GDPR. What is the meaning? Why should they go for it? That is what is a policy is going to talk about. Now, from the policy, we'll be having multiple plans. To achieve that, we are going to have multiple plans. And to achieve those processes, if you want to execute them, you will be requiring more and more roles. So that is why you are going to define multiple roles here. And for every roles, you are also going to define responsibilities and authorities. So responsibilities is always going to give what sort of activities that these roles can do. And authorities is what level of decision that they can take. That's what we are going to define. And then management will have their own responsibilities. Information has to be classified. This is one of the organizational controls that we have. Now, why should we control this? Reason is simple. If we consider every information as same level, then you will not be in a position to have control measure. It's very difficult for us to do. That's why we always have a way to classify the information. If we say that it is going to be confidential, it is going to be secret, or it is going to be company public, or it is going to be private. So you are going to label it based on certain criteria. So that's what is a classification, what we talk about. In every organization, there is going to be criteria available so that it will say, how are we going to classify depending on the nature of the information that we have. This classification is going to be helpful for us in defining our policies, because you may be having a process specific to a particular classification of the information. If it is going to be a secret information, then whenever you are going to send through the mail, it will be encrypted, and it is going to be protected by encryption, and then it is also going to be protected by password. So when that is what you are going to make, or your rule, your process is going to be built on the classification of the information. So classification is one way by which you are forcing a different type of process that should be done for the information that is going to be processed or that is going to be transmitted. And the access control that we already talked. So anybody cannot view anything. You are going to restrict that. Who can do what, till how long? Both are going to be important. That I may be having access, but I cannot have access forever. That is the reason whenever we are given user ID, access is going to be there. After 3 months, automatically it is going to be deactivated. So if you want to proceed further, you will have to raise for it. You will have to re-raise that, get it approved, and then extend it for another 3 months. That's access right, what we talk about. Identity management is one of the things that we do in all our organization, right? So nowadays, the major thing what we do is you are going to have a domain ID. So domain ID is one what we talk about the identity management. Without domain ID, you cannot do anything. Now we think the server where you have the domain server. So the domain server is also asset information asset. So when the domain server is going to be having that one, then there it is going to be very confidential. That means high level of confidentiality. Then it's also availability should be 100%, and then data corruption should not happen at all. That means if you have identity management, especially when we talk about the identity that domain servers that we have, domain servers are the one which will be having high level of CIA. Always if you are trying to rate CIA, domain servers will be having high level, because the availability should be there all the time, and then data corruption should not happen. Even if one is failing, then one person cannot, so that we do not want to have. And then confidentiality, it should not, anybody should not be in a position to break it and get the information. So identity management is one thing. Then information security, incident management. So this is how the incidents, when the incidents, what is the meaning of incident? Incident is something we talk about risk here, because whenever we talk about control, controls are for risks. So when the risk is going to occur, when the risks are going to occur, they are going to occur either as an incident or an accident. So incident is a smaller, if the magnitude is going to be, the impact magnitude is going to be less, it is going to be incident. If the magnitude is going to be more, it is going to be an accident. So that is how we are going to do here. So for that, when the incident is going to happen, how are we going to manage that? What is the meaning? That means there is a failure. A person is reporting, complaining that when he is accessing our server, he is not getting access to it, or when he is accessing, he is not getting the right data. So that is going to be a complaint that is going to be raised, and we need to have a system to ensure that this is going to be corrected. So that is all going to be part of our organizational control. That means you have a process for that, and then you are going to get it done, which is going to be common across the entire organization. That's why we call that as a organizational control. So there are certain controls which are going to be people specific. Simple thing, one other thing I can give as example is before employment, during employment, and after employment. Before employment, when people are going to join, you're already shortlisted, and we are not going to offer him unless you get background verification done, because that is the information that you want to check. We want to see that whether this person is going to be a threat for our organization. So we are going to check that one, and when the background verification is positive, which means nothing is there, then in that case we are going to employ him. And when he is going to be employed, any employee is going to be employed as part of this, as long as he is going to be with the organization, there are going to be a lot of ways by which we will be ensuring that this employee is not a cause for any of the information incident that are going to happen. So there are going to be multiple ways of doing that one. And then after employment, one of the main things that we'll be doing is, for every employee, we will be getting NDA sign, non-disclosure agreement. What is the purpose of that? These non-disclosure agreements are going to be valid till the death of that person. It is not that when he is going out of our organization, it's become irrelevant. It's not the case. NDAs are going to be there, which are going to be relevant till the death of that particular employee. The reason for that is, even if he is going to be out of our organization, the information that he had access as long as he was there in our organization should not be misused by him, others. So that is what we are trying to get here. So people control is one thing where you are going to do something on person. And physical controls. Normally physical controls, restriction activities that you have, protecting the physical and environmental threats, working in secure areas. Some of the projects they want a protected area also. So those things are going to be physical controls. Technological control is one thing where a lot of things now, that is what is a major area that we'll be focusing, where you are going to have multiple access points. So how are we going to protect them? So one thing is privileged access rights. It's that normally what we call as a power user. So when you have a power user, threat is more, because if someone knows the user ID or password of the power user, then the damage that can be caused is going to be more. So we need to have better way of dealing that one. Then information access restriction. How are we going to restrict it? Restriction can be, it can be on areas where you can see, or it can be based on the content, how we are going to filter it. Then secure authentication, how to ensure that the credentials are going to be authenticated so that anybody should not be in a position to access our database. Then the next one is very important, protection against malware. This is what is going to cause 2-3 things. One main thing is data integrity. It is going to destabilize the data integrity. So that is a problem that we will always be facing because of this protection malware. And sometimes it is also going to be it is also going to be used for stealing the data. So should be having some technology related controls to ensure as a preventive measure and as a response. That is also one of the things that we'll always be looking with the risk. Risk has two major things. One is the probability in which it is going to occur, and once it is occurring, then the impact that it is going to create. So whenever we have some mitigation activity is going to either minimize the probability of the risk, or it is going to be minimizing the threat or minimizing the impact that it is going to create. That is what is a control that we are talking about. Then management of technical vulnerabilities. Now, how to do this one, technical vulnerabilities, because based on the knowledge, it keeps on growing. That is one of the challenge that we have in IT industry. These vulnerabilities are not going to be fixed number. What you have, the system, what you consider is stable now, with the minimum vulnerability that you claim. Tomorrow, if somebody is going to come out with a new virus, that is, this system is going to be vulnerable to that particular virus. So vulnerability is going to keep coming. So unless you have a continual plan, unless you have this periodical way of looking for these things and then coming out with a solution to minimize the vulnerabilities, your system is not going to be stable. That is the biggest problem that we have. So problem is, it is not that knowing your own system alone, but you are knowing what is the trend that is happening in the technology, because the entire thing is exposed. When you are in internet, the entire information is going to be exposed. Anything can happen. So you should keep in touch, or you should keep in pace with what is actually happening as per the technology in the market, in the trend. And then accordingly, you always see that whether that particular vulnerability is going to be there in our system. If it is there, what sort of remedy that we need to go for, what sort of mitigation that we need to go for. So all these controls, what I'm talking here is only it's not a complete list. Everything is going to be plenty. There are 114 controls that are there, which are even listed by ISMS, but still that is not going to be a complete one. There are more on that one. There are always more that are there. So that is how we are going to do this one. You always keep watching what is happening there. That's why we say that risk management is always not in response alone. How we are monitoring it, how we are prepared for it. So whenever we talk about risk management, it is always going to be preparedness and the response that you are going to make. And where we are going to do, we'll be looking on 4 different aspects: organization, people, physical, and technological controls. As I said, again, security, information security is the key. Once you have this tightly done, when the information is secured, the next step is only what you talk about is our data privacy. So data privacy is going to be the next step what we are going to have. Okay. Now, when we talk about this, now we are talking about the risk management. Risk management, there are a lot of methodologies that are available. In fact, ISO has come out with, specifically for information security, it has come out with 27005, which is a risk management standard that is available. And then you have, like, there are ISACA. If you are familiar with the ISACA has got its own framework for managing the risk. There are multiple things there. If you are already working in any of the industry segment, like manufacturing industry, there it is already there. FMEA is already there. There are multiple methodologies that are there. Most of these methodologies, they have things in common. So what we have here is, when you want to have a risk management is essential, because that is what we are going to do half of the time. When we say that we are managing a project, when we say that we are managing an information management system, what we manage is only the risks. Because if the risks are not there, there is nothing to manage, because automatically what you plan is going to be executed. But now the problem is, these risks are going to keep changing. As the environment changes, the nature of the risk is also going to change. When the nature changes, the impact is also going to change. And when the vulnerabilities level also going to get changed, automatically you are going to get an impact because of that. So when this is going to be such dynamic, then we need to have a proper way of managing our risk. This is going to be for data security. Now, what are the four? These are the four phases that are there as part of our risk management. So identification, analysis, then risk evaluation and risk treatment. Now, when we talk about identification, first of all, why should we identify them? Unless you know that you have a risk, you will not be in a position to go for any control for it. First, we should know what are the risks that we have. So that is what is the thing. Like we need to have identified the risk. So we need to have a list identified first. So first thing is we're going to identify this. Now, how are we going to identify? There are two ways of doing that one. And for each process, you are going to identify what sort of risk that you have. So risks are going to be identified first, which means you are going to describe each of the risks that you have, which means you are going to go through the entire life cycle. You may be having some deliverables, right? Any business that you have will be having some deliverables. The deliverable can be a product or it can be a service that you are going to provide or a combination of that. Sometimes it can also be a research work that you are going to do. Either way, what we have at the end is some deliverable that is going to be output. To achieve this, you need to have a proper flow. Workflow should be there, the life cycle of the entire thing. So the risk can occur at any of the phases of life cycle. So we need to keep identifying the risk at all the phases, at every point of the life cycle, and then we keep monitoring them. So identification is the first thing. So when you are identifying, how are we going to identify? Again, you are going to focus on CAA. First, I'm going to say, I'm going to pick one information asset. I'm going to say that what sort of confidentiality related problem this asset is going to have, what sort of data integrity problem that it is going to have, what sort of availability issues that it has. So based on that, you are going to pick more and more risk. So identification is the first thing that we know. So once you know this, then you know these are the risks that are there. Second one is we are going to analyze. That means we are trying to understand each of the risks that you identified already. When you say that we are going to analyze, we are going to do two things. As I said earlier, every risk is going to be always associated with two characteristics. One is the probability in which it is going to occur, and the other one is when it is going to occur, the impact that it is going to create on the system. So impact and probability, these are the two things that are going to be there. So when we say that we are analyzing a risk, we are going to analyze these two, which means we are going to quantify the probability and the impact. Now, there are ways to quantify this because, it's not because risk management itself is a bigger area, but you will be in a position to quantify them. Once you quantify that, the product of that is going to give you the risk value for that risk. So once you convert every risk into a risk value, then you will be in a position to prioritize that. So prioritizing is always going to happen as part of that. Once you prioritize, then because when you are identifying, you may end up with identifying 350 or 400 risk easily for any project. When you have 400 risk, it's not going to be feasible for us to go for mitigation plan for all 400 risk, and it is not needed also. So how are we going to choose from that? What is a thing? So that is where we are doing this analysis, where we are going to quantify the impact and the probability, and then we are going to pick those risks which are going to have higher impact and higher probability. So only these things are going to happen mostly. So what we are going to do is we will be considering only those things which has higher risk value. And for them, we will be going for risk treatment. So when we talk about risk identification, we identify and we are going to give descriptive meaning for a descriptive way of writing it every risk. And as a part of risk analysis, we are going to quantify these two things, the probability and the impact. And when we talk about evaluation, based on the values that you have quantified values that you got, you are going to get the value of the risk, and then you are going to put it on three different baskets. So based on the risk value. So something called low, medium, and high. High is something where it is intolerable, which means you need to go for a mitigation plan. Medium is something where you need to watch them. This can go up or it can go down. And low is something where it is under control. That's how we are going to put it on different baskets. And then wherever it is going to be high, for each of them, we will be having a risk treatment plan. So you are going to come out with a solution, and then you are going to implement it. And as part of the monitoring, we are going to keep monitoring how the solution is working. So when you start having a solution implemented, then slowly the vulnerability value is going to come down, or the values that we are going to find, that is the impact and the probability, will slowly go down. And because of that, the risk value is going to go down, so that you can stop your risk treatment. So that is a way that we are going to use our risk management. Now, this is the way that we'll be doing for all the risks that we have as part of our information security. Okay, so this is important, because without identifying, because risk, as I said, in information security or in data privacy, whatever we talk about, the only thing that you always see is what type of risks that are there. The risks that are going to occur, they are only make your system to fail. Your plan is going to be failing only on when some risks are going to occur. So the primary activity that we do as part of your management is not doing many other things, but looking at the risks that are going to be there. So for that, you need to identify them, keep monitoring them, and see which are the risks are going towards occurring. So so you know that there is going to occur, or it just occurred. So you're going to apply the treatment plan that you have, so that you are going to push it down. So when you say that we are going to apply the risk treatment is nothing but you are going to minimize the probability, either the probability or the you are going to minimize the impact that it is going to create. So when you are trying to work on the probability, that means you are trying to minimize the probability. You are not letting that risk to occur, which is a preventive measure. So preventive measures are always going to be on probability. You know that which are the factors that are actually forcing that probability to happen, forcing that probability to increase. So we know that we will not do such things. We will try to avoid those things, so that you are not letting that risk to occur. That is a preventive measure. Preventive measure is always good, and it is cheaper also. Whereas at one point of time, whatever preventive measure that we have, it's going to fail, which means the risk is going to occur. When the risk is going to occur, then the only thing what you have is you're going to see that how we can protect ourselves from the impact that it is going to create. The problem is, as far as information technology related risks are always going to be, the threats that we are going to get are always going to be external. So when you have this external risk, we will not be having any control on that. So something like a virus attack. Now, what is the control that you can give? We cannot have direct control on the virus. The only control that you have is you need to identify the vulnerabilities in our system, and you will have to minimize the vulnerability, so that the impact is going to be less. So the only way to do as far as IT is information service security is, only thing what you can do is you can minimize the vulnerabilities. Most of the activities that we do, we will only minimize the vulnerability, so that the impact is going to be less. So, I mean, the damage that is going to be caused by the impact is going to be less, because we will not have any control on the risk, actual threats that are going to happen. We cannot do anything on that. Our actions are only where we have our control. That is what is a risk treatment, what we talk about. As I said, risk treatment is going to be combination of minimizing the probability and minimizing the damage that is going to be the impact, minimizing either combination of that. That's what we do. So risk management is a huge area, especially when we talk about information security. It's a huge area, but that is what we will be doing in all the 4 methodologies that we are going to see today and tomorrow. Okay, so that is what is this. This is a primary thing that will be there everywhere. Now we are coming to the point that we want to discuss as on today, that is data privacy. As I said, data privacy is part of information security, because we said that information has to be secured first. Then the next level is, when you say it is secured, what level of security? Now, and who is going to do that one? Who is going to say that it is secured or not? That is where the data privacy is going to be there. So data privacy is going to do one single thing, that the individuals will be having a control. So that is where the difference is. When you talk about information security, it is going to be the information of everyone, of anything that we have. So you are running a project, and any information related to the project is going to be considered as information, and you will be having a way to control that. You will be having a way to secure them. Whereas when you come to data privacy, It is going to be the ability of, this is the definition what we have for data privacy. It is going to be the ability of the individual to determine for themselves when and how and what extent the personal information about them can be shared or communicated. So if my information is going to be with someone, if my information is going to be available with my organization, then it is me who has to say whether that information can be shared or whether that information can be communicated. That is where the thing comes. Now, the way that data privacy is used, it's not related to applications as such. We always talk about things, whenever we talk about data privacy, where it is going to be applicable. We need to discuss a little bit on that, because that is where information security and data privacy actually deviates. When we talk about data privacy, anything that is going to have some information about me, that data, where it is going to be there, that may not be my employer. It can be my employer may also have my data, but it is always not going to be my employer. Anybody can have my data, right? So I'm using a credit card details and other things that are there with my provider. So there also my data privacy has to be applied. Or I'm using my social network. I'm doing a lot of activities there. There also data privacy has to be maintained. So anything, and sometimes even we do not even know. Like when you are going for, if you are a person who are habituated to using Amazon or any of these online shops, one of the things that you will notice is it watches every step. When you watch something, when you are watching a particular thing, the next time when you go, it is going to prompt you that what you watched the last time. How these things are going to be possible, because it is retaining the values. So it is just not what the information that we actually do. It is going to track all the information based on our habits. So based on our habit and based on our actions, whatever we do, those things are going to be stored, and then these applications are going to help that use that information to force us to go for buying certain things. So, or it can be selling that for something. That is what is the data privacy, what we talk about. That is the information they have from us. Our habits are, our browsing habit is going to be like normal thing what we do as part of the browser. We keep browsing many things, and the history is going to keep all the information that is there. So when you are browsing for 3-4 days and then go back and then see the history, you will see that at least some 300-400 sites you would have visited. And if you start analyzing that, it will give a pattern where you are interested. So your interest is going to be based on the pattern, based on your how you are browsing that. That is the information what we talk about. So there are going to be multiple information where directly it will be available with any of the people, or there are areas where they are going to analyze, they are going to get data based on our transactions, and then they see that they get a meaning out of that. If I'm going to use my credit card, so I know that I'm going to use credit card just for paying, but the credit card agency may be tracking what are the things that I buy using the credit card. If I'm going to buy more and more electronic items continuously, then that is a pattern that they found it, and that is what is it. That pattern is going to help them so that they will think that this guy is going again and for particular items. So then they will start sending advertisements to me. So that is what is the usage of data, what we call. So in such cases, my data, my habit is being used. Now, I should have a control on that one. That is what is data privacy. So that's the definition says here, the ability of an individual to determine for themselves when, how, and what extent the personal information about them is shared. Now, what is personal information? We are going to see that. So this is how we are going to see. This is the way that it is different from information security. Now, information security is going to be used here, but we will see that in a different context. But this is the main thing, like what are my likings? What are my choices, my selections? Those informations are going to be specific to me. I don't want anybody to use that information. That is indirect one. Directly, I may be doing a lot of things as part of that. Like if I'm like one of the things is if I'm a popular guy, like I'm a cine star. Now all my like when I have an agency to book my tickets, travel tickets, then the agency will be in a position to track me where I'm going. So day by day they will know where and all I have gone. So that means It is not that they are doing a service only for the thing what I am looking for. They have a lot of information about me, which I may not even know. And that is where the data privacy comes. So they will be doing, we cannot protect them. We cannot say that you cannot do that one, but we can control them. That is where the data privacy is going to be there. That's what we are going to see. So the elements of data privacy, what we have is right of the individual to be left alone and have control over their personal data. So whether my information should be used or not, that should be my right. And then I should have control on my personal data. These are the two basic things that are there, which is what is actually making a difference from information security into data privacy. In that way, data privacy is entirely a different thing. But information security is the one that is expected as part of this. That's why we started with this one. So the procedures that are going to be used for handling, processing, collecting, and sharing the personal data. This is where your information security is going to fit in. So the processes that are used for collecting the data related to my personal likings, my personal activities, where you are going to have your information security. And if you do not have, then these informations are going to be leaked and my information is going to be known to many people. And because of that, I am going to be in problem. Then compliance with the data protection law, which is going to be compliance part of it. So major two elements that we have, one is procedures that we are going to do, how secure they are. The other one is whether the individual has got a right so that he or she can has his control over his personal data. So that is what we have as part of this data privacy. Okay, now between the data security and data privacy, the difference is what we have discussed here. One of the main things that we see here is data security, that is information security talks about policies, how it should be there. So it's going to talk about procedures and other things, whereas data privacy is always going to be the mechanisms that are used, how you are going to do that one, how you are going to ensure that. Then applying required restriction, that is the way you are going to control the users as part of our information security. Whereas as data piracy, it is going to defining who has access to my data. It's always the centering, it is always talk about my data here in data privacy. Companies ensure protection, where here users control the privacy. So the level of privacy I want, I'm going to decide, and based on that, all these providers are supposed to work. So information asset centric, here it is always going to be data subject. That means the user, data subject centric. That is the difference what we have here between the information security and data privacy. Now we can see the difference, why we started with information and why we are now before this one. The reason for that is they are connected. But at the same time, there is a distinct difference between data security and data privacy. But data privacy is not going to be possible if you do not have a data security, because data privacy is going to be sitting on data security. Okay, so you have this as part of the data security. You have organization control, physical control, technological control, and people control. That's how we are going to bring your security created. Whereas your data privacy is going to be more on how you are making the people or making the user or the data subject what we want is not even I may not be a user. Wherever I go, I'm just browsing. When I'm browsing, my browser actually collects my all habit. Wherever I go, all the URLs it is collecting. And based on the collection, it is going to analyze, and then it is going to tell me if the last, like you get right when you start moving. Nowadays, it is there. Google sends whatever travels that you have done, wherever you have traveled. Every month, it is going to send us a plan where we have gone. So even 2 kilometers you have gone, it is giving the report. That means that is a privacy what we talk about. It is getting into my privacy. Why should another person know where I have been traveling, where I've been commuting? That is what is the privacy what we want. In that case, I should say whether this is required or not, whether they can do it or not. So that is what is data privacy. That's why it is going to be more important. And there are a lot of repercussions there when you start context. When you look into the context where it is going to be used, it's going to be much more complex. That's what we are going to see here. Now, before moving into that, let's see two more phrases which are very popular in this industry. One thing is PII, personally identifiable information. So we have been talking about our habit, like I said here, all this example so far I was talking about here, all talking about the habits. Based on the habits, it is going to pull some information. but it is not necessary that every time it is going to be pulling the information based on my habit. It can directly take my data also. So one of the thing, like you consider this case, like number one sprinter. Okay, maybe number one or probably top 10 in the world. Now he is having a person nutritionist. So every diet that he is going to have, that is available as part of that. They are making a communication. They are online nutrition with normally this top guys. They will be having nutrition, their own personal nutrition, and on a daily basis they are going to tell us what they will have to eat. Now, these things are going to be communicated through network. Now, easily WhatsApp or whatever social media that is going to be there, where they are going to do that, easily you can track. If you want, that can be tracked. If that is the case, now that information is going to be personally identifiable information, which means there should be a way by which you will identify the person based on that information. If it is going to be my driving license number, or if it is going to be my rank card, or if it is going to be my pay slip. So somewhere or other you are trying to source my ID, and then you will exactly say this particular data, whose data is that? And that is what is personally identifiable information, PII, which is direct one. So examples, your name, social security number, driving license number, Aadhaar card, account number, passport, email address, telephone number, all these things are going to exactly pinpoint who is that guy. So anything, any document that you are going to see, if you are finding one of these things, very easily you can find, you can relate to that person. And that is what is personally identifiable information. Because it is given that specific name here because when you go for data privacy, you need to ensure this, none of these PII should be made public to everyone. Only on the basis of, only on the consent with the individual, you should be in a position to make this information visible to others. That is where this personally identifiable information is going to be one thing. The next one, what you see here is PHI. PHI is specific to HIPAA, which is a standard for healthcare in US. Now this was very popular. Now so it is used because HIPAA is sort of a standard where they get the standard applied for all medicines, all procedures, all type of diseases, anything that is related to healthcare. They coded it, and that information. So suppose I'm visiting a doctor and I say I have a fever. Now fever will be having a code. And then the medicine that I'm going to take, every medicine will be having a code. And these things are going to be available in my database, in my hospital management system database. And these are related to, that is my personal identifiable information. So this is specific case of PII, personal health information. My health information should not be revealed. I may be having some problem that it is not to be viewed by everyone. Unless I say that, unless I give a consent, it should not be viewed. That is what is personal health information, what we talk about. That is also part of our PII. So whenever we talk about PII, the information that is going to be there, which we always see that it should not be viewed, or it should be restricted, or it should be allowed to be viewed only when I give consent. That is what is a privacy, what we talk about, data privacy, what we talk about. So in this case, what we are trying to do here is, of course, PII is going to be related only to US, but the way that it is going to be built is same. You need to identify what information I can use, what information you should restrict. So only the individual has to make a decision. Now, when this is a little bit complex in the sense that if I am working somewhere in an organization, all my information is going to be with the employee. That means my address, my social security number, bank account number, my blood group, my whole family information, everything is going to be everything what they have is my personally identifiable information that they have. Now, automatically, privacy law is going to be applicable on employers. Okay, that is one thing. Now I am visiting for any service, I am visiting to a hospital or any of the service centers like this, right? So when I'm going to visit a hospital, all my information is going to be with the hospital. Now hospital, again, that is going to be related to data privacy because they need to maintain this so that it should not be visible to everyone. This is known things so that wherever you go, intentionally I go, I know for some purpose I'm going there, and I'm very sure I'm aware that some of my personal identifiable information are with them. So that's a known case. Now, the other one, what I'm saying is, you consider the case you are using your credit card. Now, from the credit card, they are trying to get all the details. They are trying to probe into that like crawlers. Nowadays, crawlers are there. The crawlers are going to tell you what are the sites that you have visited. And they are going to watch us every movement that we do. So why do they do? Because they want to get the pattern. They want to see that what is that we are interested in. So once they know that what is that we are interested in, then they are going to suggest what is going to be easily. I mean, they are going to be we are going to be target for them. And that is what is the second type of thing what we are talking about. One is a known thing that we deliberately we go. We wantonly go there and then share our thing because we know that there is a meaning for it. There are some cases where we do not even know that our informations are being collected. Now, if that is the case, once we come to know that they are collecting the data, in spite, even if they do that, it is as part of the privacy law, it is mandatory that unless they get our consent, they should not be using our data. Yeah, it is mandatory, but not in all the other areas, only in US. Yeah. So rules are going to be specific to countries sometimes. Sometimes it is going to be regions. GDPR, which is going to be applicable to all organizations that are going to be doing business with them. So let's not go into that now. The scope of that, we will see that now. We are trying to get the meaning of this here. So what we see here is how we are going to deal that one, because it is very difficult. Sometimes we don't even know that they are collecting our information. So we say that even in that case, without our consent, they should not be using our data. So when you say that they are using data, what do they do with that? So there are two ways of doing that. Actually, that is what is the way that there are two ways that they can do that. One is collectively they say that in a particular area, they're going to see that how many, like somebody is going to come out with a new product, and so we are in Amazon, we are purchasing it. So most of us will be not purchasing them, but we'll be browsing it. So from our browsing history, or from the way that we are going to click and look at that one, we may not be purchasing that, we may not be ordering that, but still they will collect how many people have visited, which means that is more of a wish list. So that is one thing. Other thing is in which area it is sold more. So for analysis, it is going to be there. Healthcare, we don't have a framework so far. Yeah, somebody is asking whether there is a framework for healthcare. So far we don't have any official one, but it is that's going to be part of our as part of this PDPR. It is not there as such. Only in US, that is also not fully complete, though they started it. There are some hiccups that are coming in US also. They are not in a position to completely do that one, but still they have achieved a lot of things. They generalize the things so that a lot of day-to-day activities have become simpler by getting HIPAA implemented, because you made everything generic. All this, one of the thing I said, the diseases, the operations, what do you call, the providers, all these things, they coded it. So that is what we call as a coding, right? Coding has made building easier. That is one of the major benefit they got. So in India, we are not yet started. We are just trying to do that one, but it is not coming to that level. It's going to take more time because we need more infrastructure for that, which means laws should be available, rules and laws should be there, then only it is going to be possible. Okay, coming back to this one. So this information they are going to show. So they are region-wise, they will say which product is selling more. That is there are two ways of doing. One is as overall level, how are we going to do that one? And the other one is, initially they will come to us at the micro level. To me, what I am interested in, as Amazon does. So you are going to have that, and next time when you visit, it is always going to tell you last time you visited it, you want to buy it or not. It will clearly there at the bottom of the screen. You can see that one. These are the things which you have added last time, you have visited last time. So that is what is the PII. That is also PII, because they are trying to get meaning out of how we behave. How are we going to do that one? That information they are using, but they can sell it also. How they can sell it? Now consider this. I'm not talking about Amazon or a particular here. It is a generic one. When you have an application as part of your e-marketing, e-selling application, e-portals, where every time when I'm going to visit something, so you may get all those people who have visited, but they have not bought it. That information can be sold, and for some other agency, and then that agency can do an analysis, and they can see in this area, suppose in this particular state there are a lot of people who are looking for that one. So in this area nobody has seen that one. In this area they have seen only this type of things. So they will try to analyze that and then get some patterns in that, and based on the patterns they can come out with their sales propaganda, advertisements and other things. In this case it is done at the generic level, so sometimes this is allowable. But if they are going to pick individuals and then they are going to start sending our mails to every day we will get mail, that is what is going to be a problematic one. That means they are actually coming into our freedom, and that is what is a privacy, data privacy, where we lost. That is what is going to be done only when we accept for it, otherwise it should not be. So we are going to see that one, how these things are done later. Okay, so now we are coming to the next one. So we talk about PII, PHI. Now we are talking about personal data. So when we talk about personal data, information relating to natural persons. Now this terminologies that we are going to use here, it is going to be there in GDPR and other areas also. You may see that it is there in various areas this is used. Now, when we talk about natural person, that means you are born there, you are a person that belongs to that particular country, and there then you are any information that is related to you is going to be directly or indirectly that's going to be used. And then there are going to be special categories of personal data. Special category is if I have some record which is criminal conviction, which is going to be very sensitive. These sensitive information should not be revealed unless you have there is a requirement for that from the government side. Only for law and other requirements you can actually make it shared. Otherwise, it should not be shared. Then and again, as I said, one of the example I said, you are going to analyze the data, but you are not interested in who has bought it particularly, but you want to see the trend. In such case, you are going to be pseudonym. Your name is going to be removed. That is PII. Whatever is there is personally identifiable information is going to be removed, and then that data is going to be used for collection. So reduce the privacy risk. So whenever you want to do an analysis, because all this data, why these people are collecting, there should be a need for it. Most of the thing is going to be for sales promotion. Most of the thing is going to see that how they can get more and more leads for marketing. So when they want to create the lead, they are going to depend on the dependable data what they want. So normally they will buy these things. This you have noticed already in some countries, in Asian countries. If you are normally, this I have noticed, when you are presenting a check, normally we give a phone number also at the back, and sometimes we'll write it and give the check, present the check to the bank. Next 3-4 days you can see that people will be calling and then offering for loans. So this is the problem that we have. That is how the information is going to be leaked, and then that information is a genuine one because I sent a check which is produced and the phone number is also there. So they know that the person is there, and the number what is given is an authentic one. Then they will call us and then try to say something. They're selling that. So this is the one what we are talking about. Same thing, if you are visiting somewhere, then onwards you will start getting mails from them. You are visiting some particular site and you start getting mails from them, start getting alerts from them. So these things should not be done unless we agree to that. That's why disclaimers are always going to be there. If you do not want, you can unsubscribe that. Unsubscription should be there in all these alert mails and then automated mails. If you do not want, you should be in a position to unsubscribe that so that you should not get it. That is all related to privacy, data privacy, what we talk about. So this is going to be there. All our information or all our activities are going to be used against us, or because they want to make us one of the lead, because there is always going to be a dollar value attached to every activity that we do, because they are trying to find leads. And if they are trying to find the leads, the only way to do that one, they need to have some authentic data, and that data is going to be available when it is going to be collected in any of the social network, like when you are looking at the any of the Facebook or something, or you are making some payment somewhere. All these payment details, whenever payments are paid continuously, the history is going to tell us where I am spending more. If I am going to buy more and more on books, then I start getting more advertisements and alert mails related to books. So that depends how they get to know, because of these sort of things. That is where the thing. If that is the case, then it should be done only on the consent, only with the consent from that primary person. So that is what is the personal data all about. So reduce the privacy risk. And if a person has died, then he cannot, his data is not considered as a personal data. Information about companies and public authorities is not a personal data. What we talk about is privacy. The moment we talk about privacy, it is only related to an individual. Whereas when we talk about information security, it is going to be for both organization and the individual. But data privacy is always, the name privacy itself says that it is related to individual. So any information related to companies or public authorities may not be considered as part of our data privacy, but they may be having legal repercussion. That is entirely different. If you are getting some information about the companies and then you are trying to deal with something, then there may be legal issues that are there specifically, but not as a generic one. And then when we are having individual trader or employees, in such case, our information is also going to be private. That data is also going to be privacy data. So we are going to define what is going to be considered as a personal data and what is going to be generic one. If it is going to be a personal data, especially if it is going to be PII at any cost you should not be sharing. And personal data without PII, like you are going to pseudonym it, you are going to change the name, and then sometimes people will be making doing some analysis and get something out of that. So that is allowed to some extent, provided you already got approval, consent from the concerned people. So how they are going to get the consent? Maybe when you are logging into the site itself, they are going to say that you now you see that, right? When you are logging in, they are going to say that we have some we will be accessing your so you will be having some, you are agreeing it or not. When you say agreeing, then only it will allow you to do that one. They are going to create some cookies. So cookies creation is also going to be based on our consent, because cookies are going to be created in our laptop, in our machine. They cannot create cookies in our laptop. They can do that only on the basis of our consent. That is why whenever you are browsing something, whenever cookies are to be created, the information is going to be flashed, and we'll have to say yes. Only when we say yes, cookies are going to be created. That means you are giving a consent there. And again, any point of time, you can remove that. That's why we say when you are unsubscribing that, it's going to remove that. That is what we talk about privacy data and personal data, what we talk about. Okay. Now, now we say that you can do a lot of things with the personal data. What is considered as lawful processing of a personal data? When you say personal data, that is a data, privacy data, what we talk about. So if you have that information with you, what can you do with that one? What are the legal processing that you can do? One of the first thing is you should have a consent. That's the main thing. Data subject, when we call data subject, the person to whom that is applicable. Data subject is always related to a person to whom it is applicable. So that is for whom it is a personal data. So consent. Data subject has permitted the organization to proceed. So first you need to get the consent, then performance of the contract. Now the consent that you have will be for 1 year or 2 year or 3 years. It is going to be renewable. So that is a perform that contract. As long as that contract is going to see, though it is a contract, we are not going to get money. Most of the time, it is going to be just like visiting. So when you are visiting, it is going to be there for 3 months or 4 months. And then when you are going again, it is going to refresh it. So contract is something where how long it is going to be, that's going to be available. Legitimate interest. Now, legitimate interest is the one. Why do you want the data? As an organization, why are you interested in keeping my data, processing my activity? That's the thing here. Legitimate interest is, it is the processing activity that the data subject will generally anticipate from the organization that provides his personal data to do. So that's the thing what we are talking about. So all my credit card payments are being watched, and from that payment, a pattern is made, and then this guy is going to send me a mail to buy something. If I'm going to spend more on, say, travel, so then he is going to send me something related to travel. So that is what is a legitimate interest, what we talk about. So I need to know. If I know that, probably I will say, yes, okay, you can do, we can make use of it. That is a consent that I can give. Critical interest, vital interest, a rare processing activity that could be needed to save someone's life. This is also one of the things. This is where you are going to go beyond the rule. Suppose somebody is hit and the accident has happened in the roadside, and nothing is there, he's alone, we do not know who is he. You are going to pick his national security number, and you want to see where is how is. So in that case, all this personal data is going to be used because it is critical. At that point of time, you cannot say that I cannot use your critical data, critical PII data. We need to use that one. That's a rare activity that we are going to use because it is going to be life and death. So you are going to, you are allowed. Anybody is going to do that one. That's allowed because that's not legally. That is going. Nobody can question that, provided it is going to be of critical interest. Legal requirement. This is also one of the things. Like legally, when it is required to get some information, then automatically that should be available to them. It should be visible to them. So any of the thing that we have, if it is going to be employer who want to see my blood group, so they need to get that one, or any of the thing that we have. If something has happened, any legal issues that are coming, so in that case, they can get any of the private personal information that I have. Public interest is one thing which is going to be used for various purposes. Now, currently, that is being used too much because of the COVID situation, because the information that you have, the collective, when you're going to make the information as a collective information, then that collective information is going to be useful for the society. So if it is going to be useful for the society, then that information can be used by government entity or any other organization, public interest. In the name of public interest, if it is going to be used, where in particular information is not going to come, but you are going to get some information. So in that case, it's going to be used. Some of the things which you have already come across, something like there are rare diseases. Maybe in the whole world, you can see that there may be 5 or 7 people like that with a similar disease. Now, that is also a personal data, because what we exactly say is a PHI, personal health information. Now, though it is my health condition, I would be interested, or I would give a consent that I'll make it public because it is a rare disease. Now, I want to know how many people are there in the earth so that I will have contact with each of them. So my experience, my responses, my medication, my processes and procedures that are there, that can be useful to them. So that's why normally when it is going to be very rare cases, then in that case, they will share the information and then these things are going to be used. Now, I don't know how many of you know that this is given as a service. Like, have you ever heard WhatsApp from IBM? IBM has come out with it is there a long time, WhatsApp. So in this one, it is more WhatsApp, Watson, Dr. Watson. So the Watson is one thing which is going to give input. You want anything, any information, Watson is going to give you solutions, because it is going to have a collective information on various things in the entire world. And if you want to know something on a medical, like one of the things is, I am with a chronic disease. I want to know what sort of treatment that is required. Now I can go to Watson and then make that query. Then it is going to tell me what sort of thing that I've done. They'll give the case studies. I mean, here there is a case where it has been done this way, but these are the problems that they have faced. Then there is another case. So it's going to give me all the cases so that I can pick information from that one, and then that is again a public interest. Now in this one, information is going to be used, but for the right purpose. That is one of the things. So the way that we are going to have this personal data, the way that we are going to restrict them is always going to have both sides. It's going to be useful, beneficial. There are some people who are going to make use, they're going to make money of that. Now, how this is going to be exploited, we have seen a lot of things that is happening in the world, right? Like people who have access to credit card information, they pass on that info. The people who are processing credit card at the back office offices, once they get this information, they are going to pass on that information, and then people who are going to pay for that, and then they make money out of that. And there are people who get some disease, or information about some disease of very popular VIPs. So now, based on that one, they are going to make ransom out of that. They are going to go to that popular guy, the star, and then you say, I know that you got this disease. And this star, they doesn't want that to be in public, so they're going to pay ransom for that. So that is also the way that it is going to be done in a negative way. So that is where this personal privacy law has come. So these are the lawful. So when we talk about personal data, you have this PII, PHI, and then you have something called personal data. And then there are certain set of activities which are going to be considered as lawful processing. And that is what is going to be allowed. Okay. Now we talk about consumer rights. When we talk about consumer rights, what are the things? Now, why should be consumer? because that is what is it is not always that you are going to be an employee or you will be visiting a health you will be visiting a hospital or something. The things that we buy, where the information is going to be stored. So that is why it is called consumer rights. So consumer can exercise the right to request information about what information business collects and request that business delete any personal information and not to be discriminated. And what are the rights that they have? What type of right that we have as an individual? Right to access. At any point, if I want to know how many times I have visited, how many times I have done, so I can ask that, and that organization should respond to that. You should give all the information to me. Right to know, right to delete. If I feel that I do not want that to be part of that, you should be deleting it. Right to opt out. So you do not want that, you want to come out of that. Right to notification of financial incentive. Right not to be discriminated against. This is also one of the things like one of the special things that we have. Sometimes I do not want to be available in a public one to my political orientation or my maybe some other things. So I do not want that to be in public. In that case, that's a right. I can raise that right, and then I can get it out from that one. So there are going to be multiple. You will see that it is going to be different from every act that we have. GDPR, it is done in a different way. Everywhere it is going to see. We are going to see some samples also. One thing what we need to do is, we said that it is going to be process which should be done only on the basis of consent. Now, when you say consent, what type of permissions I can give? So these are the permissions that you can give. I can say that I have a right to access. I can access my data, and I can access to request something. I can right to know. I can delete it if I don't want. I can opt out from that one, or right to notification of financial incentive, which is something like an alert, or not to be discriminated against. So there are going to be multiple rights that I can have, and I can say that whether I want it or not. That is what is the individual information. Data is going to be lying with them, but still, only when I'm going to give them right, they should be in a position to use it. Otherwise, they should not use. That is the law what we have. Okay. We have been talking about risk as part of information security. We did talk about the risk, because risks are going to make the problems worse, because that is what we see. Because if you have execution and there are no risks in the ideal world, if there are no risks, then execution is always going to be as exactly as per the plan. So you are going to get the same thing what you are targeted as part of your plan. But that is never going to happen, because in the environment there are going to be a lot of things that are there, which means there are plenty of things that are going to be there which will not let us go or let us meet our targets. That's how it is there. So in the same case, data privacy also, there are going to be risks. The thing what we want, because what we want is this. These are the things, these are the only things which are legitimate. That's what we talk about here, lawful processing. But only these things are not going to happen. There are other things are also prone to happen, and that is what we call risk. Anything that we do not want to happen, if that is going to happen, or if there is a chance, if there's a probability that it is going to happen, we call that as a risk. Now, what are the sources from where this risk can happen? One of the main thing is data inventory, the place where my information is going to be stored. So wherever it is there, in whichever format it is, if that is not having enough information security, that then my personal information is going to be stolen. So data inventory. So the way the companies need to know the type of source of data, what is it want, and quantify that. So key data privacy risk. First thing is, you need to know what sort of information that we have. Unless you know the inventory of what you have, then it is going to be difficult for us. That's why we need to know first. Then you need to classify, because every data is going to be different. They are all not of same level, and the confidentiality of each of that is not going to be same. So you are going to classify them, and based on the class, we have also seen earlier, based on the classification, you are going to have different ways of dealing them. Then most of the time, when we are running an organization, you will be having a third party relationship, which means you will be outsourcing it. You may be getting some services done from somebody else, or you may be doing a service to somebody else. Either way, the information is prone to be communicated to some third party. In such case, it is going to be much more risk, because now you are holding the data of an individual. That information is going to be communicated to somebody else. Now that no risk is actually doubling. So that is the third-party relationship what we talk about. Portability and erasure. Companies must manage customer requests that involve moving or eliminating personal information when you are transporting it or when you are communicating it. Data security, it's information security, what we talk. Any organization which is dealing with personal data, they should be having a strong information security system. Otherwise, the entire data is going to be misused because people are going to intrude into the system and then they are going to steal everything. Consent. Companies need management tools capable of handling consumer requests in a timely manner, including specific authentication. So consent is always going to be given, not always by through a hard copy or by phone. Nowadays, it is going to be more because we say it is a more of a customer-based one. So it is always going to be based on the online pages, web pages. Oversight and monitoring, that should be there because oversight is keeping a watch vigil on how the things are happening. Monitoring is every activity that we do, we see that whether they are going as per the process or not. Whenever there is a deviation, it is going to alert us, so that, which means a risk has happened, occurred, so you are going to have a control measure for that one. So there are going to be multiple, everywhere it is going to happen. A risk is going to be there throughout the life cycle. So it can happen the way where you are going to store the information, where you are going to transfer it, where you are going to give it to third party, when you are porting it, everywhere it is going to be there, but you'll have to ensure that you will be having identified risks from every area that you have. Okay, now we are coming to another step here. We said that it is a consent. So when we talk about consent, that means what are the requests that I can do? What are the activities that I can do as part of that? When I want to give a consent, what are the things that I can do? So these are the generic things. Probably the name may be different, but most of these acts or the standards that we are going to see, they use this one. What's a subject access? Subject is the person who is going to, the individual. Access, what sort of access request that a subject can raise. So that's what we are going to see here. So what you see here is the first, this is a workflow that is given. So there should be a request that's going to be raised. Request is I can request my data. So as a customer, so I'm going to send a request, and that identify first as an organization, I am asking it. So first thing the organization has to do is identify verification, whether it is me who is asking that and I am already there, how we are going to verify. It can be, if it is going to be from the same mail ID, that is fine. If it is going to be through telephonic conversation, if it is going to happen, there are going to be some questions. You are going to say, what is your, some related number they are going to verify to ensure that you are the right person, you are the same person, to ensure that you are not going to reveal that information to somebody else. Then information for data subject request, what request is going to be there, that information. Then you are going to review that information. Then you are going to respond to the ACOS, right, and then archive it. So you are going to process it. Here you are going to do, based on the request, if it is authenticated, you are going to process that risk, review it, respond to it, you are going to give it back to them, and then if required, we are going to store that archive, you are going to store that processed information also. This is a normal process that we have, because data access request is, it can access for variables. We are going to see what are the things that are going to be there. The rights, these are the rights that we have. Right to access personal data. So my data, like consider this simple thing. You are working in an organization, and the organization has a lot of our personal data. Now at any point of time, we can ask them to provide all the personal data that they have on us. So maybe how much I paid every month, salary, all these things they are liable to give. Right to rectification. At any point of time, we should be in a position to change them if we feel, if the information is seen to be incorrect or it is not as on today. So you can change that one, rectification of that. Right to erase. So you feel that the particular information you do not want. You had some disease and you do not want that to be public. So in that case, you can selectively erase that information also. Right to restrict data processing. So you know that a particular thing is, they are trying to see, you're given that what is your political support. You belong to a political party, that information is with them. And then election is coming. At the point of election, they are going to process the data and see overall having that particular party part of their personal data, and they want to give the list to the party. That means they are making use of that for a particular issue. In that case, you can restrict it. You say that I do not want that to be processed for me, so that your name is not going to be in the list, though that information is there. That is what is restricting data processing. So for that particular, so data processing happens over a period. It will keep coming depending on the data. So you may opt out for that particular data processing. Right to be notified. This is one thing. When they are going to do something similar, you can tell them that whenever you are going to use my data for any of the requirements that are going to be coming from political party, you let me know so that I can decide. So notification. So that is also a right. You can tell them so that you will be notified. Right to data portability. You are asking for something, say the first one, right to access. You are asking for personal data, and then you can, along with that, you can say that you'll have to send the data in the format of spreadsheet, or it can be a PDF or something. That is the portability. So whatever the, it doesn't mean that you can ask something which is a weird one. Whatever is the generic things that are there, you have a choice. You are going to tell them that this is the format that I'm going, which is going to be easy for me. At least it should be portable so that I can be in a position to use that one. So that is the right to data portability. Right to object is something, you say something they are doing, you can say, no, don't do that. Restrict is something different, object is something different. Restrict it, you are restricting only for that one. Object is you are totally saying, don't do that, you are not going to do that one. Then, so the decision making purposes, they will be doing this. So these are not going to be same everywhere in all the standards. These are going to be different, and for every standard, when you try to understand each of them, there are different ways of dealing that one. So that's the thing what we are going to see later. Okay, as an individual, what you have is you are going to have if you are major or it can be minor. Now, if I'm going to be a major, in that case also I can authorize somebody to raise a request on my behalf. So SAR is going to be raised on my behalf, or I can directly send the request. Or if it is going to be a minor, there will be always a third party or some person so that he is going to raise that one. So that is what is a way by which you are going to do that one. And then you have a request, subject access. Request can be anything, one of these things what you have. Now, when you have a request, then if you are not getting the response, you are going to follow up. If you are following up, even still you do not get, you are going to raise it as a concern. Even then nothing is going to happen, you are going to complain. So there are ways to escalate. We are going to see that it depends on the methodologies that we have, the standard that we have. In each standard, how we are going to escalate this is going to be different. But there is a way that when your requests are not met, even in spite of you following up, you can complain also. This is one way where I am sending my request for my information. The other side, you have a lot of things that are there on the public interest. There are going to be multiple people who will be, that is government side. Most of the things are going to be from the government side. They will be raising some requests for my information, and these should be automatically, they should get it, because all these things are related to crime regulation, parliament, judiciary, research and archiving, health, social work, then educational and child development. These are the things they are going to want to get information about my individual information. Then I don't have to give consent for that. These things are going to be automatically taken. That is what we have as SAR, subject access requests. These requests are going to be different. Terminologies may be different, but the idea is individual. There are multiple things that he can do. Every right he has. He has right for every activity that are going to be done. And in some cases, if it is a minor, then on minor's behalf, somebody else can do that one. Even if it is going to be a major, on major's behalf, there can be a third party, we can do that one. And if that is not addressed, then you have to follow up, raise a concern and complain. There should be escalation procedure that should be available as part of the system. And in spite of all these things, if it is going to be from public interest, then there will be some requirement where without our consent, they will be getting the information. That is what subject access request what we talk about. Now, we are coming to the next one. All these things are common. Maybe the terminologies are going to be different, but this is going to be there everywhere, whether you are going to GDPR or CCPA, whatever it is. And none of the privacy data, when we talk about privacy data, concept is same. Here and there will be variation, which is also we are going to see. So special category data. Now, special category data is the one which is not identifiable one, but it is going to talk about those things that are going to be critical to me. That is very so ethnic and race origin. Sometimes I do not want to reveal that. Philosophical and religious belief. That's my personal thing. I do not want to make it in public. Political views, again, the way that we have example that we have seen. Membership for trade unions. Sometimes I don't want to make it public. Biometric data utilized for recognizing a person. This is definitely, it cannot be used. Because the problem is, if it is going to be public, then everybody is going to make use of it. Health data, genetical data, all these things are going to be information that will be there somewhere. Because when I say biometric data, unless this data is going to be available in the system, it's not going to validate when I'm going to press my thumb. So it is going to be there, but it has to be used only for accessing me. It is not going to be used otherwise. That is the thing what we talk about. These are the special type categories of data. So for these things, certain rules are not going to be applicable. Okay. Now we are going to the next part. What is going to be the future of data privacy? Where we are going ahead? What are the things that we are going to see? Now, before moving into that, so now we are talking about special category data. That's what we have seen. What is the type of that? Now we are into future of data privacy. What is going to be the change that we are going to get? One of the main things that we see is more and more we are going online. The more you are going to work with online, the more exposed we are, because everything is going to be available on net. So unless you are going to have this data security, first thing, when the data is not going to be secured, then everything is going to be public, and then data privacy is going to be in a big question, and that is a bigger thing that we have. So these are the trends that you can think of. More and more countries now, they are formulating rules. We are going to see that also now, a little bit more on this one, how every country is working on that. So now every country has started thinking that why it is necessary, because the thing is, when it is going to be available, when the data is going to be available on net, it is as good as exposed totally. So based on the exposure, now you need to have rules to formulate that. Otherwise, it's going to be a big mess. So now, if that is the case, then when every country is going to have their own act, then definitely you are going to have ways to implement that, ways to maintain that, ways to assess or certify that. So that means it is going to create a lot of job opportunities, and then it is also going to give better control on the data of individuals. That's the one thing that we have. Then the second one is increasing the regulatory pressures from host country. This is one of the things we already face here. If you see that in India, it is not that much effective, whatever we have, the Privacy Data Act that we have. But still, since most of the companies, IT companies, are working with European countries, GDPR is almost more popular than the local one here. That is the regulatory pressure what we have. So you will be having multiple standards implemented. That means wherever you want to do your business, irrespective of which country, depending on how many countries that you want to do, that many standards you will have to adhere to. And that is what is a regulatory pressure. If you are not going to adhere to that one, if you are not going to be in compliance, then you cannot do your business. So that is what is going to be big threat. Consider that export import company or any of the companies like training companies that are there, they will be having these things done from various countries. That means they will have to have this compliance for that many countries, whatever regulatory laws and acts that are there. That means it is going to increase more and more opportunities there for the people who want to work in this area. Increased demand of multi-standard compliance is one of the things. Like when you go for data privacy, it is not just data privacy alone. When you want to go for GDPR, just for GDPR you cannot go. It's a chain actually. When you want a GDPR, then you need to go for information security. So you will be going for 27,001. So when you go for 27, even for GDPR, if you go GDPR, earlier we had this problem that for GDPR it is only the assessment, whereas 27,001 actually you are certified. When it is assessed, assessment is done by third party, whereas when it is certified, certification is done by ISO organization itself. Now the certification is started coming in GDPR also. So in this case, what happens? There is going to be element of thing is there. When the third party is going to do that one, it may be or may not be accepted by the agency that is going to be in control, the organization that's going to be in control. And that is where so a lot of things have come. So 27.1, so there are multiple things that have come. Even ISO has come out with a standard for data privacy, which is actually sitting on Yeah, yes, this is the one, 27701, which is sitting on ISMS. So you are going to have 27,001 implemented on that 27,000. This is going to be sitting on that, which will be focusing on data privacy. Now that means continuous. You need to go for both together. And if you are working in cloud environment, again you will have to go for 27,017 or 8. So depending on where you are. So as far as IT is concerned, it is not that one single standard is going to be sufficient. So when you want to have everything together, there are going to be multiple standards that you will have to comply, you will have to implement, and you will have to get trained. That's going to be increasing when you are going to work with multiple countries also. So now it is GDPR as long as you are going to work with Europe. Now UK is coming out with its own GDPR. So when you want to do with the UK, then you will have to go by that one, because that is standard of compliance you need to get. Then you have California, then almost all the states of US are coming out with that one. So Canada, they have one. So when you start doing this one, then it keeps increasing. So compliance is always going to be there, because you need to have a system which is going to be rugged. Otherwise, you cannot comply to multiple standards together. That's a problem, and which means you need more and more people there. Integrated data security and data privacy system. There is one thing which is merging actually. So data security, what we talk about is information security. And as I said, data privacy is sitting on data security. And there are cases where slightly there is they are not integrated together. Now, more we work on this probably in next 5 years, there will be a tight integration that will happen between the data security and data privacy. So that is what we are expecting, because anything that is expected as part of data privacy will be inbuilt as part of our data security. So that the moment we say data security, that should be also considering data security, data privacy. That is a trend that is happening. Then increasing awareness among people. Earlier, they didn't even know that what they are going to do. Now we cannot even think of what people can do with our data. So I am going to browse Amazon, and for every click that I'm going to make, every click is going to be recorded there, and they are analyzing that. So now, unless I'm going to be aware of this, I'm not going to give any meaning to that one. Now, people are going to be knowing that now awareness is created. Everyone knows that their personal information is there. They are being used by this organization. Then definitely that awareness is going to create more and more people are want to have more sort of rights in to their data. That is a thing that is going to come. Then increased opportunities for compliance roles, because when you want to have multiple standards to be implemented, compliance roles are going to be more. Then increased host services leads to new market for data protection. So most of the thing that is a technology side. As a process side, what we see is we are going towards data privacy standards. On the technology side, the domain or the hosted service has come, cloud technology has come. So every application is going to be there at the cloud side. So in that case, data protection will be coming as a service. That is also a trend that is coming. So we will not be doing as a service that we get cloud technology hosting services service that is provided to us. Along with that, data protection will also be a service that will be provided to us. So that is also one of the trends that what we see. There are a lot of trends that are there. One of the main thing, if you look at this, how the whole world is going towards privacy law. This is one of the things that we have. In fact, if you have time, you can visit the SICE UNCTAD. There is a big document that is available on this one. It says that 71% of the countries are already some level of legislation that is made. So that is, and in 9 countries, it is in the draft legislation that is there. 15 countries with no legislation, and 5 countries, 5% of the countries are no data at all. So if you see that, even if we discard that 15 and 5, now what you have is 80% of the entire countries, they have some form of data privacy law, which means when you want to do business with multiple countries, it is going to be much more critical, much more complex. And that is what is actually increasing the scope for it. And then it is also going to increase the risk also. The more systems that you have, the more constraints that you are going to have, it is going to create more risks also. So this is the status. I think that's a very beautiful document that is given. I think it is around 100 pages document that is there available here, UNCTAD. If you have time, go through that. and it gives the entire thing. It gives a snapshot of every country where this is implemented, data protection law implemented, data privacy law implemented. Okay, increasing regulatory pressures. That is the second thing what we have seen, because now, as we said, GDPR, when you want to, from India, when you want to do, not even India, from anywhere in the world, when you want to do business with any of the person, any of the organization which is there within Europe, then you need to be GDPR compliant. Now, this is the thing. That means the regulatory pressure is increasing. If this is going to be, the same thing is going to be expected everywhere. If it is going to be UK, they are also going to have the same thing. Canada, they will also be demanding same thing. So when this is going to be started, then any company that is there in the rest of the world, what they are going to have is they need to be fulfilling this. They need to be in compliance with these regulatory requirements, and that is what is going to keep increasing their effort. So they'll have to spend more effort on that, and because of this, it is not only the negative side of that. That because when you start having multiple regulatory compliance that you are going to do that, then automatically our quality is also going to increase. The way that we are going to maintain the data privacy and data protection, that's also going to increase. And then it is always going to be again competitive advantage that's going to be there. If you do not have this, you are going to miss that one. Brand, it's not only a brand, but we will not be in a position to even bid for that thing when you are not having the regulatory things that are accessible. So if you are not assigned to that, if you are not having that, you will not be in a position to do that one. So that is a problem that we have. Increasing regulatory pressures is going to be a major thing that's going to happen. And because of that, in one way, it is always going to give growth, indirect way to growth, so that the quality of data is going to keep increasing and the individuals are going to get more secure. They feel more secure because everywhere, when more regulatory requirements are going to come, then they are going to be having better security, and their personal information is also going to be managed in a better way. And again, one of the things that we have here is the Internet of Things. Everywhere we do. That's why we have crawlers and other things. These are the things that are actually doing all these things, because manually it is not done. So these things are also going to be streamlined if this is going to be there at that level. So over a period of time, you see that anything that is going to be done through internet, they are all going to be in sync with the regulatory requirements that are there. Multi-standard compliance, we did see that one. Main thing is you'll have to reconcile when you are going to for multiple standard implementation together. Then we are going to see what is going to be the way by which you can make things generic, the processes generic, so that your job is going to be easier, but at the same time your process is also going to be meaningful, so that multiple things can get addressed based on that one. So multi-standard compliance is always one thing which is going to increase over a period of time. Okay, now we are moving into GDPR. So I don't think I can complete it today, but we will visit few pages and then we'll take it on to tomorrow, whatever is left. So GDPR is a general data protection regulation, which is the first thing that has come as part of this privacy, data privacy. So this is the one thing that has come from Europe. It is applicable throughout Europe. It was applicable in UK also earlier because of the exit. Because of that Brexit, it is now UK is coming out with its own GDPR. So what is GDPR? So General Data Protection Regulation. It's an act how to protect the data generally. So that is how it is there. It was actually started on 2016, but 2020 around it became so popular, and then now almost everywhere it is popular. So this regulation requires organization to assume full liability for the data they control or process. This is the main thing. It is a responsibility, or in fact, it is a liability of the organization which holds the data and controls or processes the data, stores, controls, and process any of the activity that we do. We're going to see what is the difference here. They need to have that is their liability, and they will have to take care of that. So you need to have processes defined in a right way, otherwise this is not going to be happening. So only thing is optimal personal data protection, because it is linked with penalties. All these privacy rules are linked with penalties. It is just not that you say that I'm not in compliance, or you are going to be not getting certificate or something. It's not certification, but it is going to be huge penalties that we are going to see. In GDPR also, it is going to be millions that you will have to pay if it is not done. And then there is records are also coming that this much of millions that has happened because of GDPR every year. It is keep increasing over a period of time. Now, what is how the structure, how the GDPR is there? You can see here how the GDPR is structured. You have 99 articles. These 99 articles are going to give the entire framework. What are the things that are expected as part of GDPR from the subject perspective, from the organization perspective, from the controller perspective, then the government perspective, and the processor perspective. You have different perspectives, and then all things are given as part of these 99 articles. And there are 173 recitals that are given, which are actually explaining these 99 articles. So it can be one to many or something. There are some articles where you don't have recitals. So you have multiple things that are there. So that based on that, you are going to do that one. And all these things have these 7 principles. So these are the 7 principles that are there. The whole GDPR is based on these 7 principles. One thing is legality, transparency, and fairness. Purpose limitation. Whatever you do only for that purpose. Don't increase it. That's what I said. Any processor, he cannot run his own process just because he feels like he has to do that one. You'll have purpose limitation. Only on the purpose you'll have to do that. Otherwise, you should not even touch the record. So that is a purpose limitation. Minimization. So as much as possible, you attack the data only that is required and don't touch the rest of the data. Accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality. These two are different, right? We did talk about that. We spent a lot of time on this one. Confidentiality is how we are preserving that one. Integrity is how to ensure that the data is not corrupted or it is not incorrect. Accountability is the ownership. As we said, every process and every information asset should be having a owner. And only when you have a owner, you will know that things are going to be done. Otherwise, you will never know who is going to be doing that one. So accountability is going to be possible only when you have a owner, and that has to be there for everything. And when we talk about these articles, you'll see a lot of activities that are going to be there. All these things are going to be based on this. You are going to apply these principles wherever it is going to be applicable. And the rights, what we talk about this, some of the things that we have seen: right to be informed, right to access, right to rectify, erase, restrict, data portability, right to object, then rights in relation to automated decision making and profiling. All these things, these are the 8 rights that are there, and the subject, based on his right, he can play any of these things, and then he can say yes or no to these things. And principles of this, based on the principles, we are going to define the processes that are going to be defined in this 99 articles. And overall, you have General Data Protection Regulation Act. It's a huge one, around 100 pages, 120 pages document. It is there. And when you are going for implementation, some of the pages are, I think 30, 40 pages are related to how at the top level things are being done that may not be applicable for organization where they are going to implement. It is done on the government side. Whereas for any organization where it wants to implement, you need to have the process defined. At least for 2/3 of that whole act, we need to have some way to get the processes done. One of the main things is the recitals are beautifully done. If you want to get a meaning out of that, it actually, the interpretation of these articles are given here as part of the recitals. It gives us the samples, examples, and then every article, if you want to get a meaning out of that. In fact, articles are easy to understand if you are familiar with the terminologies that are there in privacy, data privacy. But if you feel something which terminologies that are not clearly giving what you want to get, then these recitals are going to help us, and that gives a scenario or example where you can get that one. So commentaries is more of a commentary, and based on that you can get that one. But when scope is going to be based on articles, and scope is not going to be for the entire 99 articles, depending on how we are going to do that one. So we are going to have, as I said, GDPR is only assessed. It is not certified. Now we started doing that also, certification also. People are asking for that. In fact, one of the things that we have seen is to implement right to automated processing is, no, it is not a difficult one. because what we see here is the last one. Somebody is asking about the rights in relation to automated decision making and profiling.